Proceed. Inshallah, today we'll go over the wasiyah of the Prophet ﷺ to Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. The advice that the Prophet ﷺ gave affectionately to one of his most beloved Sahaba, or one of his most beloved companions, that is Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, who was at the time a teenager. Because when the Prophet ﷺ died, Abdullah ibn Umar was about 20 years of age. It is important that you understand that within this context that the Prophet ﷺ was advising a teenager with this advice. He said to Abdullah ibn Umar, as al-Bukhari reported, after he grabbed him from his shoulder, he grabbed Abdullah ibn Umar from his shoulder, and that is basically to establish that connection, that touch, where it is a personal advice. And the Prophet ﷺ is making himself personable by touching Abdullah ibn Umar, holding him from his shoulder, so that this would be more conducive to Abdullah ibn Umar's concentration and effective reception of the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, because it's a loving and caring advice. So he grabbed him from the shoulder and he said to him, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw 'abiru sabil. Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharibun aw 'abiru sabil." Be in this life as though you were a stranger or a wayfarer or a traveler. Be in this life as though you are a stranger or a traveler. Live life like a stranger, simply. But not just that, because actually we will come to know that it doesn't only mean like a stranger. There are two different degrees and two different rankings that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this particular hadith. A traveler is different from a stranger. And we will come to know what is the difference between the traveler and the stranger. Al-Gharib wa 'abir as-sabil. So that Bukhari said that Abdullah ibn Umar himself used to say after this, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ وَخُذْ مِنْ صِحَّتِكَ لِمَرَضِكَ وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ. إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ, when the night befalls you, don't wait for the day. And when the day befalls you, don't wait for the night. In the morning, don't wait for the night. And in the evening or at night, don't wait for the day. وَخُذْ مِنْ صِحَّتِكَ لِمَرَضِكَ, and make use of your health before your sickness. وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ, and of your life before your death. So, كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب. We'll go over the explanation of the hadith, and then the two most important questions when you hear the advice of the Prophet ﷺ. The two most important questions that should come to your mind are what? What does it mean? And how can I do it? What does it mean? How can I do it? And you need to reflect on yourself, because usually when we hear the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, we hear it as though it applies to someone else. Because the shaitan, whenever you're hearing the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, the shaitan is not leaving you alone. This is a prime time for the shaitan to work, to distract you from the meanings, the implications, from reflecting, from comprehension, from understanding, from taking it to heart, from applying it, from living by it. That is basically the shaitan's most important time to be at work. You're hearing now the advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you're trying to counter all of the tricks of the shaitan and all of the distractions of the shaitan and trying to focus. And your focus should be on what it means and how do I live by it. Personally, not, Umar and Muhammad and Hassan. How do I live by it? And where am I falling short from this advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So, kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib, be in this life as though you are a gharib, a stranger. Aw abiru sabil, a traveler. There is a difference between the stranger who arrived, it's like you're traveling, you reach your destination, and you spend a few days there at your destination. Keep in mind you're a stranger in that town. You're still eager to go back home, right? We're all eager to go back home. There's always a home, and we're always eager to go back home. And so the stranger in that town may rent a room or a studio or like a little apartment for a week or two, or stay in a hotel, or if he stays a little bit longer, he will rent something small for accommodation during that time in which he will be in that town. The wayfarer, Abir Sabil, does not do that. The wayfarer is the traveler who's already journeying. He's traveling. He's on top of his mount, crossing the desert. He did not even reach his destination. So the Prophet ﷺ, it gives him the two rankings in order. You be like a stranger, but if you can be like a wayfarer, that is even greater. If you can be like a wayfarer, meaning your journey back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on all the time. You're moving. You don't have time for any distractions. You don't have time for any, accommodation here or there. You are on the journey, on the road, traveling all the time. You don't, take a time for rest here or there. And don't stay in any town on the way to your final destination, to your final abode, to when you return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the gharib, the traveler, he may, use some of the amenities, some of the comforts that are in this town, but he will never be hoarding, he will never be building, he will never be purchasing, buying, he will never be collecting and gathering stuff in this town. He will never be busy with the affairs of that town, too consumed in the affairs of that town. He's just a traveler. He's just here for a short while and he's going back home. Do you envision a person like this keeping busy with the affairs and the gossips of that town and the problems of that town? Absolutely not. But the wayfarer and the actual traveler is even less distracted because he does not settle. He does not settle in any place. He is on his way to his final destination. So that is, the two meanings that the Prophet ﷺ tried to bring to our reflection here in this hadith. Gharib and Abir Sabil, the stranger and the traveler. If you can't be a traveler, at least to be a stranger, because there is nothing less than that. For those who are guided and those who were, who were granted divine grace and divine guidance and tawfiq, there is nothing less than being a stranger in this life. Because once you take this life as your final destination, your hometown, then you're destroyed. If you take this life as your final destination, then you're destroyed. Then you will not be aiming to reach your destination, your hometown at all. You'll just stay here. So, what does it mean in bullet points? How do people be strangers? What does it mean? How do we apply it? And then we will talk about how we could get there to that station, that maqam, station, where you are actually a traveler. Your heart is a traveler, not only your body, mainly your heart, because this is a travel by heart, mostly. So, one is that you will have a goal. You will have an ultimate goal. You will have a focus. Right? If you know that this is not my hometown, and I have to go back home, I have to go back home, this is not my hometown, it means that your life will have a purpose. It is important that you understand this hadith. This hadith is a treasure. It's a treasure trove. It's full of treasures. It is important that you understand it, whereby it gives you this wholeness and holiness and holism. It gives you this wholeness and holism, this togetherness, and this togetherness, not only the togetherness of the body and the mind and the heart, but it is togetherness with the source of wholeness and holiness and holism, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's your jam'iyyatul qalb. It is your ma'iyya with Allah, or jam'iyyatu qalbika ala Allah. It's your togetherness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this hadith is actually a treasure trove. It's just like, if you really understand what it means, you will really love it. Not only this, but it will also be a source of therapy from our ailments and diseases. All of our ailments, our weaknesses, our human weaknesses, our defects, our shortcomings, particularly of those of the heart. This will be a treatment and therapy of all of this. And this will be a cure and healing for our fractured souls and spirits and saddened hearts. It will bring us this inner contentment and inner happiness and inner peace that we are looking for. It is also important that when you understand this hadith, you understand it within the general outlook of Islam, which is constructive, positive and constructive. It is not pacifist or nihilist. This hadith is not telling you just like walk away from life, walk away from your responsibilities, walk away from your family, stay at the masjid and someone else will take care of your kids. It is not telling you this, because that is not the general outlook of Islam on life, which is positive and constructive. This is a nihilist approach to this hadith. This hadith is not about this. So what the hadith does is that it tells you, have a target, have a goal, have a purpose, have an objective, have some mission for you in this life. Be what you're here for. Be what this is about. Just sit down with yourself and reflect. What is this life about? Shouldn't we do this with everything, every endeavor in our lives? But the endeavor of life itself, shouldn't we sit down and figure out what it is about? That whole thing. What is my mission? What's my purpose? What's my end goal from this life? So to have this focused target is extremely important. And the focused target will be eventually Al-Jannah, right? And beyond the Jannah. لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَ وَزِيَادَةً. For those who did well, their compensation will be al-husna and more. What is al-husna? Husna is the most beautiful one. That's the most beautiful abode, most beautiful ending, al-Jannah. Wa-ziyada, and more. What's that more? It's the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is your connection with Allah. It is your greatest prize, which is to earn the rida, or the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to see Allah, to behold Allah with your own eyes while He is pleased with you. That is the ziyada, that is the extra that you will get beyond the Jannah. But the Jannah is our hometown from which we were removed, right? And then Ibn al-Qayyim, you must have heard of this poetry several times, but it is so beautiful that we always repeat it. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, فَحَيَّ عَلَى جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ فَإِنَّهَا مَنَازِلُكَ الْأُولَى وَفِيهَا الْمُخَيَّمُ ولكننا سبي العدو فهل ترى نعود إلى أوطاننا ونسلم وقد زعموا أن الغريب إذا نأى وشطت به أوطانه فهو مغرم وأي اغتراب فوق غربتنا التي لها أضحت لها الأعداء فينا تحكم فحي على جنات عدن فإنها منازلك الأولى وفيها المخيم. Then come along to the paradise of Eden, for it is your hometown, it is your first abode, first hometown, وَفِيهَا الْمُخَيَّمُ, and there is your campsite. Don't set up your camp here. This is not the place to set up your camp here. It is there, your campsite is there. فَحَيَّ عَلَى جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ فَإِنَّهَا مَنَازِلُكَ الْأُولَى, for the Jannat Adn, or the gardens of Eden, are your hometown, منازلك الأولى وفيها المخيم, and there is the campsite. ولكننا سبي العدو, but we are the captives of the enemy. فهل ترى نعود إلى أوطاننا ونسلم. So do you think we would be ever able to go back to our hometown and be safe from the enemy? وقد زعموا أن الغريب إذا نأى وشطت به أوطانه فهو مغرم. And they have always said that when the stranger goes far and his hometown becomes so distant from him, he becomes eagerly impatient to go back. And we have come a long way, right? We have gone far, and our hometown is so distant from us. So it is only expected that we become eagerly impatient or impatiently eager to get back to our hometown. وَأَيُّ اغْتِرَابٍ فَوْقَ غُرْبَتِنَا, what an exile that is worse, which exile is worse than our exile? فَوْقَ غُرْبَتِنَا الَّتِي لَهَا أَضْحَتِ الْأَعْدَاءُ فِينَا تَحَكَّمُوا, in which the enemies rule over us, in this exile that we live in which the enemies rule over us. So this is the first lesson that you get from this hadith. Be concerned and occupied with going back, because you are only a traveler in this dunya. This dunya is not your hometown, it is not your final abode. Be eager to get back to where you belong, where you stayed first when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam and he was in the Jannah and he was removed from it afterwards. So can we make it back? The descendants of Adam, can we make it back to our hometown? Now, having this target and having this focus is extremely important for everything afterwards. Second thing that you learn from this hadith that is extremely important is that you should not waste time. Should you waste time? You know, if you're a traveler, if you're a wayfarer, and you want to go back to your destination, and your destination is nothing like this. This is nothing like your final destination, the beauty of the Jannah and the blessings and the bounties and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will inshallah, all of us and the rest of the believers get to experience in the Jannah. You will come to know that none of the enjoyments that we experienced here were anything like what you experience in the Jannah. Should you waste time? Absolutely not. A traveler should not really waste time. A traveler should only, get off his mount to get a little bit of rest a little bit of, basically sustenance or rest and sustenance to be able to get back on top of his mount and to complete his journey. That's why Abdullah ibn Umar used to say, وَخُذْ مِنْ صَحَّتِكَ لِمَرَضِكَ, and make use of your health before your sickness, وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ, and make use of your life before your death. As if he's trying to paraphrase many of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the advice of the Prophet ﷺ about, the best use of time, capitalizing on time, making sure that this is your greatest asset and making the best use of it because it is your greatest asset. You're just but like a combination of days and nights, as Hatem al Haj said. So your best asset is your time, those days and nights. The Prophet ﷺ, as Al-Hakim reported from Abdullah ibn Abbas, said, "Agtanim khamsan qabla khams." No, this is a famous hadith that we should reflect on, and we should always remember it in our times of youthfulness, of health, and because the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith said that "Agtanim khamsan qabla khams," which means hasten to make the best use of 5 things before their opposites befall you. Hasten to make the best use of 5 things before their opposites befall you. What are those 5 things? Then the Prophet ﷺ said, "Shababaka qabla haramik," your youth before your old age. Shababaka qabla haramik, your youth before your old age. وَصِحَّتَكَ قَبْلَ مَرَضِكَ, and your health or your well-being before your sickness. وَغِنَاكَ قَبْلَ فَقْرِكَ, and your wealth or solvency before your insolvency. Your being wealthy before you become poor, or your wealth before your poverty. Your time of wealth before your time of poverty. وغناك قبل فقرك وفراغك قبل شغلك وحياتك قبل موتك. وفراغك قبل شغلك, your free time before you become occupied. Your free time before you become occupied. And your life before your death. And your life before your death. So your youthfulness, if you have free time and you're youthful and you have a little bit of money that is sufficient for you, we're talking about not ghina in terms of wealth, the extravagant wealth, we're talking about sufficient, what you have enough sustenance to get by. وَغِنَاكَ قَبْلَ فَقْرِكَ and فَرَاغَكَ قَبْلَ شُغْلِكَ, free time, and you're alive for sure. If you're listening to this, then you're alive, and you have free time, and you have enough sustenance, and you have enough health to be able to do good things. You have 4 out of 5. If you have 1, you should make use of it, but you have 4 out of 5. That is if you are old. And if you are younger, then you have all 5. Then what are you doing? Wasting time. And how come you're not capitalizing on all of this? You're youthful, you have free time, you have enough sustenance, you're not suffering the hunger pains that will keep you from thinking or reading or memorizing or doing good or visiting the sick or helping the needy or doing something good for your deen or your dunya. And you have all of this, so what are we waiting for? So if you truly a stranger or a wayfarer, you're not going to be wasting time. And if you have all of those, bounties from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and great graces from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then why are you not moving forward? Why are you not making use of them? So remember this hadith. It is very important, particularly for our younger people. Because if you're young, you'll likely have all of them. You'll likely have all of them if you're young. Because you will have some free time, and you will have, alhamdulillah, some health, and you're alive, and if you're here, you're alive, and most of you have enough sustenance to get by, if not more. So you have it all. So this hadith is reported by Al-Hakim authentically from Abdullah ibn Abbas. اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس شبابك قبل هرمك وصحتك قبل مرضك وغناك قبل فقرك وفراغك قبل شغلك وحياتك قبل موتك. Make use of 5 things before the opposites befall you. Your youthfulness before your old age. Your health before your sickness. Your wealth before your poverty. Your free time before you become occupied. And your life before you die. Which could happen any time. Before you know it. So someone who's a gharib will always be hastening, will always be, making the best use of those assets, those great assets. As they said, Hatem al Basri, in fact, is the one who said this, rahimahullah, that يا ابن آدم إنما أنت بين المطيتين يوضعك الليل للنهار ثم يوضعك النهار لليل ثم يوضعانك للآخرة أو حتى يسلمانك للآخرة. So, the son of Adam, you are being hurried by 2 mounts. You get on one that will hurry you to the next, which will hurry you to the next, until they both get you to your final destination, al-akhirah, the hereafter. What are those 2 mounts? Day and night. So you need to always be thinking that day and night, every day that ends and gets you to the night, it's like you are switching mounts. You were on this mount and now you're switching. And that mount will soon give you up to the next one. And every time you're being switched around, you're getting closer to your final destination. You're getting closer to the end. So you think about it every time the Maghrib comes. That is a day gone. Never come back. Every time, the sun rises, that's a night that is gone. It will never come back. And you think about it this way, that will bring this sense of rush, hurry, urgency to you to make it back to your hometown and to not waste time idling here in this temporary abode. So to have a target and to have a focus and to have this diligence and this hurry and urgency to get back to your target are some of the things that we learn from this hadith, some of what this hadith means. Now we come to the third point that is important. So you have a target and you hurry to your target. You sprint to your target because you want to get there and you do not want to get late. You want to get there on time. You do not want to be late. And you do not want to be removed from your goal. Third thing that is extremely important for a traveler is to avoid all the distractions, because that journey is full of distractions. And it ought to be, because it's a test and trial. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He who created life and death to test you. Who is better in deeds or who is better in action? To test you. So this journey is not like a piece of cake. It is not like you're just going to be walking around getting to you. It's not like a free cruise that is free of trials and tests or anything. There will be a lot of distractions. There will be a lot of distractions around you. Of the distractions that are around you is basically this life itself. That should be your way, that you should make your way through it, that you should make your way through it. It becomes in and of itself a distraction. So that's why life is beautiful. if you can find your way through it to your ultimate goal. But life is life is deserving of curse, and all of the negative reports about life that you hear are not about the life of those people who can make their way through it. Because otherwise their life is mazra'atul akhirah. It is basically where they sow the seeds that they will harvest in the hereafter. So that should not be cursed or should not be dispraised. It is the life that distracts you that is cursed and dispraised. And there is so much that you should worry about. Keep in mind that one of the last things that we could get rid of, and we could rid our hearts of, is the love of recognition. The love of recognition. Think about, let's try to reflect on, our conditions. So, basically, someone who will really act like a traveler, or will feel inside like a traveler, will not mind the business of others. He will not get into people's businesses. He will mind only his business. And he will be completely distracted from all of the noise, all of the ambient noise around them. He will just, he will have his target, and he will not get distracted by all of this noise. Fame is one of those things that are very hard to recognition by people. It is basically whenever you dress up and you look good, or you buy a new car and you want the people to look at your new car, or you buy a new house and that means that you're not acting like you should be. You're not being the stranger. Because that's the stranger really, and the stranger in a town that he doesn't know people in it, and he's here to run some errands, to finish some business and get back home quickly to his hometown. Does he actually try to show off in this town, and does he try to to gain popularity and fame in this town? No, he doesn't actually enjoy anything in this town. In fact, a stranger will not even worry about his appearance in that town. He will just, I have a business here to finish, and I'll finish it and I'll get back home. When he goes back home, then he puts on his best, clothing, and he purchases big houses. And do you know how people from the Middle East, like people from Egypt and people from slightly poorer countries in the Middle East, when they travel to some place like, the Gulf, and they work for money and they make money and stuff, how they live such very tight lives, as long as they are, keep in mind, they could live 30 years in Saudi Arabia, and all 30 years they're living very tightly because they're saving so that when they go back home, they enjoy their savings. And they could die there in Saudi Arabia before they get back home, because they did not really figure out what is home. Home is not Egypt. Home is home. So you should live like this, right? But you should know the right home. The right home is the Jannah. So when someone walked into the house of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu, and he did not find anything in the house of Abu Dharr, no mata'. Mata' is usufruct. It is anything of value, anything of use. Any useful property is called mata'. Useful property, no useful property. So he said to him, "Where is your stuff?" And he said, Abu Dharr said, "We have another house, so every time we have something, نوجهه إليه. So every time we have like a property, we send it there. We direct it to that house. Send it there." So the man said to him, "But as long as you are in this house, you will need some furniture, some mata'." So Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu said to the man, "وَلَكِنَّ صَاحِبَ الدَّارِ لَا يَتْرُكُنَ فِيهِ." But the owner of this property, the owner of this house will not leave a stay in it. Will not leave a stay in it. And you will not leave at your own accord. You will be kicked out. You are not leaving at your own accord. So you would only have property and furniture if you were to leave at your own accord, because you will know, you could calculate, I know I will live 10 years, then I will have stuff that is good for 10 years. But you're not leaving at your own accord. You will actually be kicked out at any time that the owner of that property will decide. But to be, so sometimes we say this, but to be practical, does that mean that you give up everything? Does that mean that you give up all of your money, you give up everything, and you don't have a car, and you don't have anything? No, it is not. It basically means to be a minimalist, meaning to be light, to have that which will help you get to your final destination. And everybody knows what he needs to get to that final destination. But beware, don't deceive yourself, because Allah knows, and Allah sees, inside your heart. Allah can look into your heart. Don't deceive yourself and say, I need all of this to get there, because you're not really using it to get there. Even if you need it to get there, you're getting it from haram, and you're not using it the right way to get there. It is being a distraction for you. How much gear do you need to have to go to the battlefield? Everybody knows how much gear they need to have. For some people, it works better for them to have a lot of gear, to have a lot of weapons, to have a lot of shields, to have a lot of armor, to go to the battlefield. But do you know that the most potent fighters are the lightest? Do you know one of the reasons why the Romans were quickly defeated by the Muslims, in the early wars? Because the Romans were moving in tons of gear, and the Muslims were extremely light. So the speed at which they struck the Romans was just amazing, because they were extremely light. Not a lot of armor, not a lot of gear, so they were not weighed down. So they were extremely light, and that is the most potent fighter. Think of it in this context, in the context of how much do you need to have to get there. You do need to have sustenance and provisions. Which is important. It's important for everything, even for this pursuit of knowledge. Imam Shafi'i said, أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن تفصيلها ببيان ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة وصحبة أستاذ وطول زمان. My brother, you will not be able to get knowledge or earn knowledge, or attain knowledge, except through 6 means. And he mentioned zakah, intelligence, حرص, eagerness, keenness, واجتهاد, effort, وبلغة, provisions, some money, because you will need to spend, you will need to dedicate time for this knowledge, you will need to buy books, so bulgha. But are we treating life like the bulgha, like the sustenance, the necessary provisions? And if you are, then that is good. Keep in mind that the Ashara al-Mubashirin bil-Jannah, the 10 who were given glad tidings of paradise, they were wealthy, but they used that wealth. They were capable, they had it, but they used it well to get to their final destination. If you're using it to get to their final destination, and the pursuit of it is not distracting you, and the spending of it is not, earning you sins, then you're fine. But at the end of the day, also keep in mind that the most potent fighters are the lightest. And if you embark on this trip, try to be as light as you can, to try and be a minimalist. Take from this life what is necessary for you to complete the journey in the fastest and most proper way. So, avoiding the distractions is by being a minimalist. Avoiding distractions is by avoiding competition. You're not, competing with anyone, because that competition will destroy your focus, will completely take you away from your objective and your focus. Competition is the worst thing, right or wrong, because we're always competing with someone else. Men and women, older and younger, there is always competition between us. But if you're really a stranger or a wayfarer and your target is the Jannah and the pleasure of Allah, beyond the Jannah is your greatest and your ultimate objective, then you're not going to be competing. And once you're not competing, your heart will be liberated from the worst form of captivity. Once you're not competing with people for this life, you're only competing for the pleasure of Allah. And the pleasure of Allah is vast. So, fame and celebrity, popularity, is one thing that we're always... But what is the benefit of popularity? What is the benefit of fame and celebrity? What is the benefit of all of this? Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, in his book Tarikh, he mentions that the Sa'id ibn al-Aqra came back to Umar ibn al-Khattab after the Battle of Nahawand. He went back to Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Umar ibn al-Khattab kept on asking him about Mawt al-Muslimin, the dead among the Muslims. And the Sa'id ibn al-Aqra kept on mentioning to him so and so from Ayan al-Nas, Fulan wa Fulan min Ayan al-Nas, so and so and so and so from the most distinguished of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ that were killed in the Battle of Nahawand. And then Sa'id ibn al-Aqra said to Umar ibn al-Khattab, وَغَيْرُهُمْ كَثِيرٌ لَا يَعْرِفُهُمْ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Keep in mind, remember this. Sa'id ibn al-Aqra said to Umar, and many others, that Amir al-Mu'mineen does not recognize. Umar radiallahu anhu, Amir al-Mu'mineen, does not recognize. So Umar radiallahu anhu, and those are the martyrs of this battle. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, Umar certainly cried first, and he said, وَمَا ضَرَّهُمْ أَلَّا يَعْرِفَهُمْ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِنْ كَانَ اللَّهُ قَدْ عَرَفَهُمْ وَقَدْ أَكْرَمَهُمْ بِالشَّهَادَةِ فَمَا يَضُرُّهُمْ أَلَّا يَعْرِفَهُمْ عُمَرُ. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, so what harm will befall them if they are not recognized by Amir al-Mu'mineen? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself recognizes them, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted them with the shahada, martyred them in his cause. So what benefit it is to be recognized by Umar, or what harm is there in not being recognized by Umar if you're being recognized by Allah? So think about it in this journey. As a traveler, do you want to have the recognition of the people of this town as a stranger in this town? Are you competing for office, for a political office in this town? You're a stranger. You're never going to be able to get to, political office in this town. So it doesn't matter for you. You're here for a certain business. You're not busy looking for recognition here. Can we really do this? That is one of the hardest things. Because you could give up a lot of things. And you could give up, you could be a zahid in the sense of not being so eager for money or being this or that. But this is the hardest thing. That is why Imam al-Zahabi said, آخر ما يخرج من قلوب الصالحين حب الرياسة. The last thing that comes out of the hearts of the good, of the salihin, the righteous people, is the love of leadership. The love of leadership. Because it comes with recognition, it comes with praise and so on. And that is one of the hardest diseases to come out of the heart. But those who really embrace this hadith as a philosophy of life, as a way of life, you embrace this hadith, the meaning of this hadith, you will really not be so thirsty and eager for or hungry for that recognition. As long as you're being recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people's recognition will not matter to you whatsoever. That is why you will do the right thing at the right time that will be most pleasing to Allah, not the thing that will earn you the most recognition. So that is number 3 of what this means. كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب. You have a target. You don't waste time. You don't get distracted. And lastly, this hadith is it's not about being a nihilist. It is not about abandonment of the dunya. Because you could say that, you could, hear some people talk about zuhd and all of these concepts as detrimental to civilization in the sense that it will basically keep you away from good works that are essential for progress, development, the well-being of humanity. This hadith is not about this. This hadith is about complete commitment to your role in the society without wanting the recognition from the society, but wanting it from Allah. So when you are committed, like Salman said, and the Prophet ﷺ commended him for this statement, إن لبدنك عليك حقا ولأهلك عليك حقا ولضيفك عليك حقا ولربك عليك حقا فأعطي كل ذي حق حقا. Your body has rights on you, and your family has rights on you, and your guests have rights on you, and your Lord has rights on you. So give everyone their due rights. That is what you should do. So it is not like you're going to basically lay back and relax and not honor your commitments and not work for your family and for the betterment not only of your family but the betterment of your society and the betterment of your nation. You're doing all of this work but seeking the reward from Allah and from Allah alone. And you're not seeking recognition from the people. The people's recognition does not matter. Is that really destructive to any civilization, or is that like a civilization builder? Because it will be a civilization of virtue, not only a civilization of material progress and material development, but it is a civilization of that as well as virtue and morality. Then that is how we think of this hadith. It is positive. It's a positive force for civilization. It is certainly a positive force for civilization. It means that you do work hard, but you seek the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tirmidhi said, and keep in mind, that once you really embrace this hadith, you will really have a good life. Because the only way you will have this interest, the only way you can enjoy your life is to have this interest in life. That's the only way people could really, really, truly enjoy their life. So, Tirmidhi said that, Tirmidhi reported this from Anas radiallahu anhu, and it's a famous hadith. من كانت الآخرة همه جمع الله له شمله ومن كانت الآخرة همه جمع الله له شمله وجعل غناه في قلبه وأتته الدنيا وهي راغمة. There is one piece that I'm forgetting. من كانت الدنيا همه أو شمله Are they 3 or 4? Only 3? Okay. So جمع الله له شمله, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep him whole, will keep him together. This جمع الله له شمله, Allah will keep him whole and together. Do you know what it means? It means that your heart and body and mind will be in one place. That you will not have internal conflict. That you will not have identity crisis. You will be together. You will be together. You're doing what you're doing. Your exterior and interior are compatible. Your heart is in agreement and in line with your mind. What you're doing is what you believe in. And what you believe in is what you do. You're together. Everything, that is peace. Conflict that brings about an anxiety, that brings about distraughtness, that brings about distress, comes from not being aligned. All of your faculties, your heart, your mind. You do things that you hate, and you hate things that you do. And your interior and exterior are not the same. And you're saying, you know, you have one face with those people and a different face with the other people as well. So that is detrimental to your psyche, to your inner strength, stability, comfort, and peace. But جَمَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ, or لَمَّ اللَّهُ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ, Allah will keep him whole and together. وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ, and will make his wealth in his heart, or his strength in his heart here. It means that his wealth, not in the sense of the currency, the dinar and the dirham, but it means his strength will be in his heart. Meaning he will have this internal happiness, inner happiness, that cannot be removed, that cannot be taken away by anyone. وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ, and the dunya will come to him in complete submissiveness. The dunya will come to him in complete submissiveness. So if you are a gharib, you will get to enjoy that town, that foreign town. You will get to enjoy everything in that foreign town. Because basically, if it is a sunny day, you will enjoy the sunny day. If it is a gloomy day, you don't mind so much, because after all, I'm not going to stay here. You know, if things are good in this town, you'll enjoy them. If things go bad in this town, you are not really concerned that much, because I'm not staying here. The only way you could have no frustrations in this life is when you have no expectations. But as long as you do have expectations, you will continue to have frustrations. And when will you not have expectations of this life? Only if you كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. Be in this life as though you were a stranger or a traveler. Now, after all of this, so these are the 4 points that are very important to reflect on. Reflect on them in so many different ways. You know, because everyone has his own way of reflecting on them. If you are going through a divorce, for instance, with your wife, God forbid, may Allah protect you. Because divorce is bad. And divorce is of the shaitan's works. But people who go through like disagreement with their wives, disagreement with their business partners, and so on and so forth, they should reflect on this hadith. How do you reflect on it? How is living like a stranger basically your focus? You're not going to allow anything to distract you. Some people, when they get into a conflict, it possesses them for the rest of their lives. They want to get even for the rest of their lives. After they separate, after divorce, after anything, after the breakup of the business, for the rest of their life, they're trying to get even. That will eat up your heart. That will devour your sanity. It will devour your inner peace. There is nothing that is more detrimental to your psyche than this. To want to get even. It is permissible to get even, right? It is permissible to get even, fairly. But if getting even will distract you, will delay you from reaching your target, who would want to get even? If it will delay me from reaching my target, let alone if it will detract you from or remove you far away from your target. If it will hinder you from reaching your target, throw it. I don't care about getting even. If it will delay you the least from getting to your target, I would still leave it. don't get delayed. Because conflict, to be in the middle of any conflict with friends, with business partners, with a wife, with a family member, will have detrimental consequences to your mental and emotional, psychological well-being. Someone that is not in the right mindset will not be able to excel in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through, worship and through serving the people and all of this. It will certainly delay you. You will lose a lot of mileage if you don't forget that conflict, and if you don't move forward and completely remove it from your sight. Because even if it is in your peripheral, visual field, you're still having it in your peripheral visual field. You're still being reminded, annoyed by it. It will keep you back and it will delay you. Completely drop it. Forget it. Move on. Any conflict. You lost money, that's fine. You're going to lose your life. You're going to die. So that's fine. If you could get it back, if you could establish justice without being derailed from your path, that is fine. Go ahead and try to seek justice. But if not, if it will require from you derailment or delay, then forget about it and keep going. Because if you lost some money, if she took the kids, make sure to check on the kids every once in a while and make sure to call them on the phone and make sure to do this and that and to make dua for your kids until, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's it. She took the kid. That's fine. It's gone. Move on so that you don't get late to your destination. Finally, how do we actually do this? Because all of what we talked about is what it is, but how do we do it? How do we get there? How do you just become like this? Because all of this is reflecting on what it means. But we have not talked about how do we do it? How do we be those people? Because we're not those people. Look at us. Have a little bit of introspection. We're not those people at home. We're not those people at the workplace. We're not those people anywhere. So how do we be those people? Because those people existed, by the way. We're not talking about theory. We're talking about people that walked on the surface of this earth. And they existed. They implemented the theory. With complete honesty and complete perfection. They implemented the theory. So the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Abdullah rahimahullah, he was asked this. Abu Bakr al-Marwazi rahimahullah said that قيل لأبي عبد الله كيف نستعين على قصر الأمل? How do we seek help on having قصر الأمل, which literally would be short hope, which would mean having no wishful thinking, or having no thought of longevity in this dunya, or something of that nature. Recognizing the temporariness and the shortness of this dunya. How could we do this? So what do you think Imam Ahmad said? Because this is extremely important. This is the key to this, to how you get there. Imam Ahmad gave us the key. Huh? Submit yourself to God. Imam Ahmad said, La adri, I do not know. But then he said, إنما هو توفيق. It is a divine grace. It is a divine grace. Meaning what? That's it. That's the perfect answer. Because getting there and being those people is not about how much you know. And it is not about any math, it's not about any calculus, it's not about, so you do this and that, and step one, step two, you get there, make a right, make a left, you'll be there. No. إنما هو توفيق. It's a divine grace. Which means what practically for us? It means that you need to surrender to Allah in humility and submissiveness, tadarru, dhul, khuduwa, in every single meaning of the word tadallul, humility, submissiveness, and you ask Him for that divine grace because no one else could give it to you. That is what it means. So you knock the door and keep on knocking until it opens. Knock the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stand by the gate, wait for it to open. As long as you're standing, it will open for you. Once you move away, once you give your back to the door, you're done. But keep there, facing the door and knocking until it opens. There is nothing else. But a few practical steps that will help you stay by the door. Because ultimately it is a door that will be open to you at one point if Allah sees that you're deserving. But to be able to get to where Allah sees that you are deserving, you will need to have frequent remembrance, dhikr. That is why the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the remembrance of, the hereafter, the remembrance of death, the tafakkur, the reflection and all of this is of extreme importance. That is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about the dhikr that it is better than spending, gold and silver, and better than fasting and praying and spending gold and silver and confronting your enemy and smiting at their necks and they smiting at your necks. Because that remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep you from being lost and becoming forgetful and heedless, and will keep you standing by the door. As long as you have a remembrance in your heart and you keep on knocking the door and you stand by it and you keep on facing it, you wait for it to open, you're fine. You turn your back to it, you're gone. So you wait there and you have this frequent dhikr and you have tafakkur. Tafakkur over all of the phenomena around us. The alteration of day and night. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Verily, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alteration of the day and night are signs for people of understanding. So, the alteration of day and night. Reflect on this. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it, like it's just a natural phenomenon. It is a natural phenomenon. Allah created it. And this natural phenomenon that Allah created is bringing you closer to your finish line. So that reflection is of utmost importance. Salli salata muadda. So reflection not only on this, but reflection on everything around you, reflection on this. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, أَكْثِرُ ذِكْرَ هَذِهِ الْلَذَّاتِ. Frequently remember the interrupter of all enjoyments, that is death. Reflection, سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم. Reflection on the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the horizons. We were just in the car coming here and we looked up the lifespans of different trees. Do you know that the lifespan of a pine tree, a certain pine tree, is 5,000 years old? A pine tree. There are some trees that have a lifespan of 50 and 75 and 100 and 300 years. But some of the, red cedars and stuff, they have a lifespan of 3,000 years. And there is a particular pine tree that is 5,000 years old. It was there before Ibrahim alayhi salam. And it's still alive. Though that tree had seen generations and generations of human beings. Many of the trees that you see around you will outlive you and outlive your sons and daughters and children and grandchildren, the trees that are around you. Isn't there like an opportunity for us to reflect on this? يؤمل دنيا لتبقى له فمات المؤمل دون الأمل وبات يروي أصول النخيل فعاش النخيل ومات الرجل. So وبات يروي أصول النخيل, and he was watering the palm trees, and the palm trees lived on, after him, and he died. So the reflection is of importance. If there is like any time after the event, I only need 5 more minutes.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
Just 5 more minutes. So like I said, the reflection is the work of the heart, the work of the mind, but what is the work of the body that would help us also, like practical steps that we could do to be heedful of those facts and of the things that we could do, in addition to the things that are common and things that everybody knows, such as تغسيل الموتى and اتباع الجنازات and زيارة القبور, etc. Visiting the graves and washing the dead and attending, the janaza and all of this, which is certainly important and helpful. And they should take primacy over other things, because the advice of the Prophet ﷺ should always take primacy. But also of the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, and Abu Bakr al-Muzani said that no one should sleep except while أن يكون له ما يعمل فيه إلا جعل عهده تحت رأسه. No one should go to sleep except having his wasiyah, his will, written and underneath his pillow. Not necessarily underneath your pillow, but if you have it somewhere visible, somewhere visible where you see it going back and forth, you see that your wasiyah is near, that will be helpful. Also, if you buy your own kafan that you will be shrouded in and keep it somewhere visible in your closet, every time you're trying to put on your nice suit, you will see it next to your nice suits. That is good, that is helpful. You think it is morbid. No, it's not morbid. Some of you may think it is morbid. No, it is not morbid. You're just being reminded. Keep it in mind. You will do this and you will enjoy the good things of life. But you will always be reminded, frequently be reminded. It will not be out of your visual field. Your wasiyah is in your drawer. So every time you open your drawer, you see it. Your kafan is in your closet. So every time you dress up, you see it. And in addition to the other things that I just mentioned, which are of prime importance, visiting the graves, washing the dead, attending the janaza, and so on. Finally, rafqatul salihin, the company of good people that will remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. And if you don't find them around you, you will find them in books. You will read this, of the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba. You will live with them, and you will remember them fondly at all times, as if you were in their company. Because the more you know about them, the more you have this feeling that it becomes a very 3D feeling of their presence. It will feel like that generation, the greatest, is around you, surrounds you. by knowing more and more and more and more of the seerah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his Sahaba, you will feel like you're surrounded by them, and then you will be impatiently eager for their meeting, like Bilal radiallahu anhu. You know, Bilal, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, Bilal did not want to make adhan afterwards because it was extremely burdensome, emotionally burdensome on him to make adhan. There were two times where he did actually make adhan after the Prophet ﷺ. One time he came back from Sham for like a quick visit to Al-Madinah, and Al-Hasan and Hussein begged him to make adhan, and he made adhan, and certainly the whole Medina was in tears when he reached the part of the adhan of Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the second time is when they went to Jerusalem, and Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu asked Bilal, or pleaded to Bilal, because he was very adamant not to do it. But the second time is when Umar ibn Khattab pleaded to Bilal to make the first adhan at the Masjid al-Aqsa. And he did. And so he lived, after the Prophet was dead, he continued to live in his company. And until the day of his death, his wife said to him, she kept on weeping and so on. And he said to her, "No, don't cry. غدا نلقى الأحبة محمدا وصحبه." Tomorrow I will get to meet our beloved ones, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. So it is basically to be surrounded, and you could do it through learning more and more about their seerah. You can have this like 3D feeling of the presence surrounding you, and then they will be your friends and company. Which does not never think of the people around you as beneath you, because that is arrogant. But if you don't find the statures that we're talking about in the people that are around you, you will find them in the seerah. Be in the company of the good people here, but don't be contented with the good people that are here now, and make sure that you are surrounded by the company of the greatest of people. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.